Oh, Ron and I are pals, we're neighbors. My name's Dan Cahill. I live right up the street at 15 Hamilton Drive. I started coming out here in '88. My wife and I bought the property in '04, built a house there. Probably the most important thing I say this morning, I absolutely love Montauk. My family loves Montauk. We have 5 kids, and our youngest graduated high school 3 years ago. My wife and I moved out here full-time in 2016.
Nice.
And we've been reading in the paper for about 20 years about John Keeshan trying to bury the utility lines along Old Montauk Highway. And my wife saying to me, Dan, please go talk to John, please go talk to John. I have no expertise in municipal finance, utilities, or local government, none. I'm a trader by professionally. But I'm very good at getting stuff done. And like Mo, it's a lot of work. And of course, I'm not exaggerating, I've been married for 31 years. I have never won an argument with my wife in 31 years, okay, that's a fact. So 2015, I go introduce myself to John Keeshan and said, hey, I'd like to help on one condition. It's private, not public. I've been reading the articles and you're trying to get money from the government, and I don't think the government's gonna give people money to improve their views. It's just not gonna work. And he said, sure, fantastic. And then I immediately went to my friend Ron, who lives next door, and begged him to help me to figure this out. We go to Amazon, get 3 whiteboards, go into my basement, like, how do we figure this thing out? They've been trying to do this for 20 years. And now I'm gonna give very top line progress. I'd be happy to get into as much detail as you want me to. But Ron and I figured, okay, what are the main questions we have to answer? One is, what is the scope of the work? And, hello. And over the last 4 years, there have been many, many iterations of the scope of the work. First, it was the whole road, then there was a 200 property special tax district, and just over time, organically, that changed. Secondly, how much does it cost? Many, many cost estimates. I mean, I cannot tell you, I'm gonna say there's been 20 different jobs and 20 different cost estimates. And then last, how do you pay for it? And there are some things called special tax districts, or people write checks, or maybe someone would personally finance it. There's many, many different ways, right, to finance it. But I just want to give you an idea of how hard it has been just to get to this point. We hired an attorney, Doug Goodfriend. The utilities wouldn't even meet with us. And finally I get to meet Chris Hawks and Fred Vopel. Chris Hawks is the senior design manager for the East End of Long Island, and Fred Vopel is the executive vice president for the whole Eastern Seaboard.
Working for
which utility?
PSE&G, I apologize. So
Okay.
there are 3 utilities that hang lines on the poles. PSE&G, the electric, Verizon, the telephone, and Altice, the cable. PSE&G owns 60% of all the poles, so whatever they decide, Verizon and Altice have to go along with them. So now I finally get into PSE&G's offices, just like this, there's 20 people, and Fred says to me, Dan, about 10 groups a year for the last 10 years have approached us, 100 groups to do what you are proposing to do here. Guess how many have successfully done it? I have no idea. I have no idea. 0. He's like, Dan, it's herding cats. It's too hard. So stop wasting our time. They then won't even come out here. So one of my pals, Jay Wheatley, runs the municipal finance department at Citigroup, he and 5 other guys for the last 30 years. He says, Dan, we're the largest contributor of capital to municipal finance projects in the state of New York. I'll get them to play ball with you. He introduces me to Tom Falcone, who at that time was the CFO of LIPA, now he's the CEO of LIPA. He's like, Dan, I'll get them to play ball with you. They come out to the house. There's about 10 people from the 3 utilities, my attorney. We have the meeting. 2 days later, my attorney sends me a Superman pencil pouch filled with Superman pencils. Dan, even Superman isn't getting this done. Nice knowing you. They just don't want to do it.
Wow.
Okay? They just don't want to do it. Now, I'm sorry to explain this whole thing, but I just want you to know it's
Yeah.
4
No, it's
years
good to
later.
know.
Interesting, yeah.
Now, the
Yeah.
last 2 years, my guess is once a week for 2 years, it's 100 meetings, either telephone or in person with PSE&G, probably half of that with Verizon, and probably something similar with Cablevision, and then the private electricians. Separately, door number 2, local government. So we go talk to, at that time, Larry Cantwell, who's the town of East Hampton supervisor, Fred Thiel, who's the New York State Assemblyman, and Ken LaValle, who's the New York State Senator. Dan, we've been trying to do this for 20 years, it's a great idea. I see Larry Cantwell a few weeks ago, he goes, I owe you an apology. I was like, why is that? He said, you know all those meetings we had, every time you left the room, I turned to everybody, God, what a nice clueless guy you are, that guy is. I was like, well, okay, but we kept at it. So now, it's 4 years later, and I don't know, once a quarter, so we've had 16 meetings with the supervisor, Larry Campbell, now Peter Anskoyak. Half of that, probably 8 meetings with Fred Thiel, and half that, probably 4 meetings with Ken Laval. Totally on board. Local government wants to make this happen. Okay, so now we have different phases, and we want to make the most simple phase. The idea is, do you all know where Tara Drive is, just west of here?
Yes, I do.
So if it's, 1 mile to 1.5 miles up, from Tara Drive to town, there's 120 poles and wires. And the idea is to take them all down. And then what Ron started talking about before, well, how do you figure this out? Ron and I finally said a year ago, you know what, we have to show everyone it's possible. Phase 1 is just where we live. So we're gonna take down the 20 poles from Davis to Cleveland, cost 650 grand. We're gonna make suggested prices to our neighbors, suggested contributions. So 6 neighbors contributed 100 grand, took it down to 550. Ron and I split the 550 in half, we paid 275 each. Done, showed everyone it's possible. And now we started getting telephone calls. People started coming to us, oh my God, this is possible, it's amazing. The town, Fred Thiel and Peter Van Scoyk said, Dan, we're so amazed, if you can get some of the other phases done, we will pay for taking down the 15 poles and wires at the gateway. So as you come over 27, we'll pay it's gonna be about $1.5 million to do that. Oh my God, I almost fell off my chair. We're in the meeting, I was like, could you say that again? I almost fell on the ground. So now the town and state are gonna do something I thought they would never do. When I went to first meet John Keeshan, I never thought the government would give any money. They're gonna do that. Okay, so now we do phase 1. Phase 2, we made this up, Washington to town. There's 18 properties, and we started knocking on everybody's doors. It turns out 2 people that live in this district, Tom DeLitto, who lives in Washington, and Chris Concannon and his mom Jane, that bought their places in 1952, are ecstatic. We made up a mathematical formula. Well, how do you figure out who contributes what? We took linear feet to the highway, then total linear feet, divided each person's linear foot by the total linear feet to get a fraction, multiplied it by the cost of the job to get a suggested contribution for each person's property. And then we did that with square footage of the property also, and then we combined it. Hey, these are your suggested contributions. Tom DeLitto's suggested contribution is 80 grand. He said, I'll pay 250. Chris Concannon's is 90. I'll pay 250. These 2 guys say, not only will I pay 250, we will backstop any cost overruns, and anyone that can't write a check, we will personally finance at the 10-year yield rate of 1.9%. Now, I would just say to you all, Ron and I have spent 4 years of our lives, right, and doing this. We're really into Montauk, and so, I don't know, I've spent about 100 grand, right, on attorneys and other things. Tom and Chris now are gonna put in $500,000, maybe more, and then offer things at 1.9% and backstop any cost overruns. So if it's possible for any folks to do this, this is a dream. This is like, here it is, it's completely teed up. And you still might not be able to do it. We had a conference call with Beach Plum a few days ago. It looks like they're gonna do it, but it's hard, it's expensive. It increases, things are expensive. We just came from Beachcomber. Same thing, they're considering it, but it's hard. The 18 properties here, I think 15 of the 18 properties want to do it. Chris Hawks is like, Dan, the town will not let us do any construction between Memorial Day and Labor Day. If we're gonna finish this thing, we have to have a shovel in the ground by November 15th. Right now, it looks like there's 3 properties that are not gonna participate. Atlantic Bluffs, Paul Gangsey that lives just east of you, and Patty Sider who lives just east of you. So these 6 poles would stay up. 16 poles will go down from Washington to here, and then the 16 poles from Patty's house to town will go down. That'll be done by Memorial Day. What Ron had mentioned, phase 3 is starting maybe in a week. So from Davis to Tara, Those 12 poles are coming down between November 1st and January 1st. Phase 4 will be the town will pay for next year, the gateway, and then phase 5 will be from Cleveland to Washington, and my guess is that's 2 years from now. And that's the idea.